long before the majestic pyramids of Egypt graced the desert skyline, before the towering columns of Greece and the grand roads of Rome. The seeds of civilization were sown in a fertile land nestled between two mighty rivers. This region, known as Mesopotamia, derived from the ancient Greek word meaning between the rivers, was cradled by the Tigris and Euphrates. These life-giving waterways flowed from the rugged mountains of eastern Turkey, carving their way to the Persian Gulf and bestowing upon the land incredible fertility. This is the story of how humanity first gathered in cities, developed writing, established laws, and gazed at the cosmos, creating the blueprint for urban life that would echo through the ages. As the last ice age receded, around the 10th millennium BC, the climate of Southwest Asia began to warm, loosening the frozen grip that had constrained human potential for thousands of years. In the hills and valleys surrounding the Tigris and Euphrates, small bands of hunter-gatherers made a remarkable observation. Wild wheat and barley grew in abundance, and these early people, who had spent countless generations following herds and gathering seasonal plants, began to linger in places where food was plentiful. The geography of Mesopotamia, with its fertile plains and seasonal flooding, played a crucial role in the birth of civilization. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers were not just waterways but lifelines. They provided water for irrigation, enabling the growth of crops that could support large populations. The rivers also served as transportation routes, facilitating trade and cultural exchange. As people settled along these riverbanks, they formed the first urban centers, marking the transition from nomadic life to settled communities. The importance of the river systems cannot be overstated. They were the backbone of early Mesopotamian society, dictating the rhythms of life and the cycles of agriculture. The annual floods deposited rich silt onto the plains, replenishing the soil and ensuring bountiful harvests. This predictable cycle allowed for the establishment of permanent settlements and the eventual rise of cities. The agricultural revolution that swept through the Fertile Crescent was a turning point in human history. As people began to settle in one place, they observed the natural cycles of plants and animals, learning to cultivate the land and domesticate animals. This transition from hunter-gatherer to farmer was gradual, unfolding over centuries, but its impact was profound. The domestication of plants and animals revolutionized human society by selecting plants with desirable traits, such as larger seeds and non-shattering husks. Early farmers transformed wild grasses into cultivated wheat and barley. Similarly, the domestication of animals such as sheep, goats, and cattle provided a reliable source of meat, milk, and hides. This newfound ability to produce surplus food allowed communities to grow and flourish. In the Jordan Valley, the settlement of Jericho emerged as one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited towns. Around 11,000 years ago, its inhabitants built stone walls, not just for homes but for protection, marking the first evidence of communal defense. These early builders also crafted mysterious tower structures, the purpose of which remains debated by archaeologists even today. Further east in Anatolia, the settlement of Atayaik developed into a remarkable community. Here, people built their mud-brick houses so close together that they had no streets. Residents entered their homes through openings in the roof, moving across the settlement like ants through a complex mound. This innovative urban planning reflected the ingenuity and adaptability of early societies. As societies grew more complex, the need for record-keeping became paramount. In the city of Uruk, around the end of the 4th millennium BC, administrators began using clay tokens to represent quantities of goods. These tokens eventually evolved into marks pressed into clay tablets, giving rise to the world's first writing system. Initially, these marks were simple pictographs, with drawings representing the items being counted. A picture of a sheep meant a sheep, and multiple sheep were indicated by multiple marks. Over time, The system became more abstract, with marks representing not just things but sounds. This evolution of writing was a monumental leap forward, enabling the recording of transactions, laws, and stories, and laying the foundation for complex administration and cultural development. The discovery and use of bronze marked the beginning of a new era. Metalworkers found that mixing copper with tin created bronze, a material harder and more durable than pure copper. This technological innovation had far-reaching implications, leading to the production of stronger tools and weapons. The expansion of trade networks was another hallmark of the Bronze Age. Obsidian from Anatolian volcanoes, prized for its sharp edges, traveled hundreds of miles from its source. Lapis lazuli from distant Afghanistan found its way to temple ornaments in the southern plains, and shells from the Persian Gulf appeared in inland settlements. These trade networks facilitated not only the exchange of goods, but also the spread of ideas and cultural influences. As societies became more organized, religious beliefs and social hierarchies began to take shape. Temples, initially simple shrines, grew more elaborate and became centers of worship and redistribution. Priests performed rituals to ensure good harvests, and temples became places where grain was collected and dispensed. Social stratification increased as those who controlled the surpluses gained power, and those who interpreted the will of the gods gained authority. The egalitarianism of hunter-gatherer bands gave way to hierarchical communities with emerging elites. The development of irrigation systems was critical to the success of early agriculture. The annual flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates provided rich silt for growing, but the scarcity of rainfall meant that water had to be managed carefully. Early farmers learned to dig channels to direct water to their fields, giving birth to irrigation agriculture. Managing these irrigation systems required leadership and organization beyond the family unit. Communal projects to build canals and dikes fostered more complex social structures and required cooperation among community members. This communal effort not only ensured the success of agriculture, but also strengthened the bonds of early societies. The cultural and artistic achievements of early Mesopotamian societies were as significant as their technological and agricultural innovations. Pottery, sculpture, and other forms of art flourished, reflecting the values and beliefs of these early communities. Pottery, in particular, became a vital craft, with fired clay vessels providing lightweight and watertight containers for storing food and transporting liquids. Art became a medium through which societies expressed their beliefs, values, and aspirations. Symbolism in art reflected the religious and social structures of the time, with motifs representing deities, myths, and the natural world. Cultural exchange and influence were evident in the artistic styles that traveled along trade routes, enriching the artistic traditions of each community. The dawn of civilization in Mesopotamia was a period of profound transformation. From the humble beginnings of small settlements to the rise of complex societies, humanity took its first steps toward building the world we know today. The achievements of these early societies laid the foundations for the great civilizations that would follow, setting the stage for the next chapters in the story of human history. As we conclude this chapter, we look ahead to the next, where the legacy of Mesopotamia's pioneering innovations will continue to unfold, shaping the destiny of civilizations yet to come. The 4th millennium BC stands as a pivotal era in human history, marking the emergence of true urban civilization. By this time, humanity had laid down the foundational elements of what we now recognize as civilization. The creation of cities, the development of specialized crafts and professions, the construction of monumental architecture, and the establishment of complex religious institutions all converged to shape a new chapter in the human story. The rise of early urban centers was driven by the agricultural revolutions of preceding millennia. The ability to produce surplus food allowed communities to grow beyond small farming villages into bustling cities. Agriculture's role in urbanization cannot be overstated, as it provided both sustenance and the means for trade and economic growth. Geography played a significant role in the development of these cities. Fertile river valleys, such as those of the Tigris and Euphrates, provided the necessary resources for sustaining large populations. The predictable flooding cycles of these rivers enriched the soil, making it ideal for agriculture and supporting the growth of populous urban centers. As these cities grew, so too did the complexity of their social structures. A clear social hierarchy emerged, with power concentrated in the hands of a few. This stratification was reflected in the architecture of the cities, with grand temples and palaces for the elite, and more modest accommodations for the common populace. The southern alluvial plains of Mesopotamia became the cradle for the world's first true urban civilization, the Sumerians. This region, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers approached the Persian Gulf, was rich in resources and strategically positioned for trade and cultural exchange. The Sumerians made significant contributions to technology and governance. They developed one of the earliest known writing systems, which evolved from simple pictograms to a complex script capable of expressing abstract concepts. This innovation was crucial for administration, allowing for the recording of transactions, laws, and literature. The Sumerians were also adept at cultural exchange, interacting with neighboring regions and influencing them through trade and conquest. Their innovations in agriculture, architecture, and governance left a lasting legacy on subsequent civilizations in the region. Among the most notable achievements of the Sumerians was their architectural and urban planning prowess. Cities like Uruk were marvels of engineering and design, with carefully planned layouts that facilitated trade, defense, and religious practices. The White Temple of Uruk, perched atop a towering platform, was a testament to the Sumerians' religious devotion and engineering skill. Its gleaming whitewashed walls were visible for miles, symbolizing both the city's power and its spiritual significance. This early prototype of the ziggurat would influence temple architecture for centuries to come. Beyond religious structures, Sumerian cities were characterized by their defensive walls, densely packed neighborhoods, and bustling marketplaces. These elements reflected the city's roles as centers of commerce, culture, and governance. Sumerian city-states were politically independent entities, each with its own ruling dynasty and patron deity. Governance in these city-states evolved from shared authority to more centralized forms of power. Initially, councils of elders and assemblies of citizens held significant sway, but over time, religious leaders assumed greater authority. Priest-kings emerged as powerful figures, legitimized by their connection to the divine. In times of crisis, military leaders known as Lugal could be appointed, sometimes transitioning into permanent kingship. This evolution in governance reflected broader trends towards centralized authority, with kings claiming divine sanction for their rule. Although not yet considered divine themselves, these rulers wielded considerable power and were often buried with lavish displays of wealth. Religion was deeply interwoven into the fabric of Sumerian society. Each city-state had its own pantheon of gods, with a patron deity elevated to special prominence. The Sumerians viewed their gods as powerful beings with human-like emotions and needs, requiring regular offerings and rituals to maintain their favor. Temples were the focal point of religious life, serving as the earthly dwellings of the gods. Priests performed elaborate rituals to appease these divine residents, ensuring the city's prosperity and protection. The concept of an afterlife was less developed than in later cultures, with the dead existing in a shadowy underworld. The development of writing was one of the Sumerians' most profound achievements. What began as simple pictograms for accounting purposes evolved into a sophisticated writing system capable of recording language and abstract ideas. By 2500 BC, Sumerian scribes were using a script with hundreds of signs to document a wide range of subjects, from legal transactions to literature. Literacy was the domain of a specialized class of scribes who underwent rigorous training to master the complex system. These scribes played crucial roles in administration, culture, and commerce. Sumerian scientific thought was a blend of practical observation and mythological explanation. Medical texts from the period reveal a sophisticated understanding of anatomy and treatments, although disease was often attributed to supernatural causes. Astronomy was another area of advancement, with celestial movements tracked for agricultural and religious purposes. The Sumerians' ability to observe and predict natural phenomena was impressive, even as they interpreted unusual cosmic events as omens. The cultural legacy of the Sumerians is preserved in their literature, most famously the Epic of Gilgamesh. This epic tale, which originated in stories about a historical king, explores themes of heroism, friendship, and the quest for immortality. It reflects the values and beliefs of Sumerian society and has influenced countless works of literature throughout history. The transformation of oral traditions into written texts marked a significant cultural shift, allowing for the preservation and dissemination of stories, laws, and knowledge. This literary tradition laid the groundwork for future civilizations to build upon. As we conclude this chapter, we recognize the profound impact of the Sumerians on the course of human history. Their innovations in writing, governance, and culture set the stage for the great civilizations that would rise in their wake. In the next chapter, we will explore how these pioneering achievements continued to shape the destiny of the ancient world, as new empires emerged and old traditions evolved in the ever-changing tapestry of human civilization. In the earliest known human civilizations, the quest to understand existence and the cosmos was a central theme reflected in the literary and religious texts of the time. These ancient works, often inscribed on clay tablets, sought to answer the profound questions of human origin and purpose. Among these texts were creation myths that depicted the gods fashioning humans from clay, destined to serve the divine beings who ruled the heavens. Such narratives not only provided a framework for understanding human existence, but also reinforced social hierarchies and the divine right of rulers. One poignant piece of wisdom literature, Man and His God, delves into the theme of undeserved suffering, a motif that echoes the biblical book of Job. This text explores the relationship between humans and the divine, questioning the justice of the gods and the reasons behind human misfortune. It is a testament to the depth of intellectual and spiritual inquiry present in these early societies. The creation myths and hymns often served dual purposes. While they were expressions of religious devotion, they also functioned as political propaganda, legitimizing the power of kings by depicting them as chosen by the gods. The hymns praised not only the deities but also the kings, who were often portrayed as semi-divine figures. This intertwining of religion and politics was a hallmark of early civilization, as rulers sought to consolidate their power through divine association. As societies grew more complex, the need for formalized legal systems became apparent. The earliest known law codes, such as the laws of Anamu from around 2400 BC, represent humanity's first attempts to codify justice and order. These codes marked a significant shift from the principle of physical retribution, encapsulated in the famous eye for an eye dictum, to systems of monetary compensation for injuries. This evolution in legal thought reflects a growing emphasis on societal stability and the protection of individual rights. The laws covered various aspects of daily life, including commerce, property, marriage, and criminal justice. They reveal a society deeply concerned with fairness and the resolution of disputes. The shift towards monetary compensation over physical punishment indicates a move towards a more civilized approach to justice, where reconciliation and restitution were prioritized over vengeance. The development of these early laws set the foundation for later, more comprehensive codes such as Hammurabi's. They underscore the role of law in ancient governance, highlighting the importance of legal systems in maintaining societal order and protecting individuals from arbitrary rule. The economic life of these ancient civilizations was intricately linked to temples and palaces, which controlled vast agricultural estates. These institutions were the economic powerhouses, employing thousands to farm lands, tend livestock, and produce textiles. The temples, in particular, served as centers of economic activity, developing sophisticated accounting systems to track income, expenditures, loans, and interest payments. This level of economic organization was unprecedented and laid the groundwork for future economic systems. Private commerce also thrived, with merchant families conducting trade expeditions to distant lands. By the middle of the 3rd millennium BC, trade networks had expanded significantly, reaching as far as the Indus Valley in modern-day Pakistan, the highlands of Iran and Afghanistan, and Anatolia. These networks facilitated the exchange of goods such as grain, textiles, timber, metals, and luxury items, fostering cultural exchanges and economic prosperity. The economic impact of these temple economies was profound, as they not only contributed to the wealth of the city-states but also played a crucial role in cultural exchanges. The influence of trade on cultural development cannot be overstated, as it brought together diverse peoples and ideas, leading to the cross-pollination of cultural practices and technological innovations. The period of early civilization witnessed remarkable technological advancements that transformed daily life. The invention of the potter's wheel around 3500 BC revolutionized ceramic production, making it more efficient and standardized. The introduction of wheeled vehicles around 3200 BC drastically changed transportation, facilitating the movement of goods and people across greater distances. Bronze metallurgy advanced significantly, resulting in stronger tools and weapons that enhanced agricultural productivity and military capabilities. These technological innovations were instrumental in shaping the economic and social structures of the time. Mathematics also saw significant developments, with the creation of the sexagesimal number system based on units of 60. This system is the ancestor of our modern 60, minute, hour, and 360-degree circle, underscoring its lasting legacy. The mathematical knowledge of the time was applied to various aspects of life, including astronomy, engineering, and architecture, reflecting a society that valued intellectual pursuits and scientific inquiry. The social hierarchy in these early city-states was complex and stratified. At the top were the kings, priests, and nobles who wielded significant power and influence. Beneath them were professionals, scribes, merchants, and master craftsmen, who played essential roles in the functioning of society. The majority of the urban population comprised ordinary craft workers, laborers, and servants, while slaves occupied the lowest rung of the social ladder. However, slavery was often a temporary condition resulting from debt or warfare, rather than a permanent status. Women in these societies held more rights than in many later civilizations. They could own property, operate businesses, and serve as scribes or priestesses, although the highest religious and political offices remained predominantly male domains. Marriage was typically arranged by families, with a bride price paid to the woman's parents. Divorce was possible for both partners under certain circumstances, though men generally enjoyed greater freedom in this regard. The social structures of the time were crucial in maintaining political stability, as they defined roles and responsibilities within the community. The organization of labor and family structures played a significant role in the functioning of the economy and society at large, reflecting a civilization that valued order and hierarchy. The city-states of this era existed in a near constant state of competition and conflict. Disputes over water rights, boundary lines, and trade routes frequently escalated into warfare. Around 2500 BC, Lugal-Zagsi, the ruler of Umma, successfully conquered several neighboring cities, briefly unifying much of the southern plain. However, his achievement was short-lived, as internal rivalries and external threats soon led to his downfall. The political landscape of Mesopotamia was characterized by a delicate balance of power, with city-states vying for dominance. This environment of competition fostered military innovations and strategies, as leaders sought to protect their territories and expand their influence through diplomacy and alliances. The constant warfare and shifting alliances had a profound impact on cultural development, as they facilitated the exchange of ideas and technologies. The military strategies and innovations of the time laid the groundwork for future empires, as leaders learned from past conflicts and adapted their tactics to new challenges. The rise of Sargon of Akkad marked a turning point in the political history of the ancient world. Born to humble beginnings, Sargon rose to power through his remarkable political and military skills. He seized control of Kish around 2334 BC and quickly turned his attention southward, where he defeated Lugal-Zagsi and his allies in a series of military campaigns. Sargon's vision extended beyond mere conquest. He sought to create a unified territorial state under direct central control, replacing the traditional city-state system with a centralized empire. To achieve this, he removed local rulers and installed loyal officials, often from his own family, as governors. This administrative innovation marked the birth of the world's first true empire, a multi-ethnic state with centralized authority, extending over a vast territory. At its height, Sargon's empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, encompassing diverse cultures and peoples. His administrative innovations set the stage for future empires, as they provided a model for governance and cultural integration. The cultural legacy of these early civilizations is profound and enduring. The religious, literary, and scientific ideas developed during this time continued to shape the region for millennia. The transmission of knowledge and cultural practices across empires and cultures facilitated the development of new ideas and innovations. The influence of Sumerian civilization is evident in the religious concepts, literary themes, artistic conventions, and scientific knowledge that were adopted and adapted by later peoples. Even after losing political independence, the cultural heritage of Sumer continued to shape Mesopotamian civilization, as subsequent empires built upon the foundations laid by their predecessors. Cultural diffusion played a crucial role in shaping later civilizations, as the exchange of ideas and practices enriched societies and fostered innovation. The preservation and adaptation of Sumerian knowledge ensured that its legacy would endure, providing a foundation for future generations to build upon. The importance of cultural heritage in historical identity cannot be overstated. The achievements of these early civilizations laid the groundwork for the great empires that followed, as they established the principles of governance, law, and culture that continue to influence the world today. As we look back on the dawn of civilization, we are reminded of the enduring impact of these early societies on the course of human history. In the next chapter, we will explore the emergence of new empires and the ways in which ancient traditions evolved, as human civilization continued its journey through time, adapting to new challenges and opportunities. In the cradle of civilization, where the fertile lands of Mesopotamia stretch across parts of modern-day Syria, Turkey, and Iran, Sargon the Great emerged as a formidable force in ancient history. His empire, the Akkadian Empire, was a marvel of its time, uniting diverse cultures and regions under a single rule. Sargon's approach to empire building was innovative and strategic, allowing him to maintain control over a vast and varied territory. To bind this diverse realm together, Sargon implemented several unifying strategies that proved crucial for the administration and cohesion of his empire. One of his key strategies was the establishment of his native tongue as the official imperial language for administration. This move not only facilitated governance, but also helped in the cultural unification of the empire. With a common language, communication across the empire became more efficient, reducing the chances of misunderstandings and fostering a sense of shared identity among the diverse populations. In addition to language, Sargon standardized weights and measures, which played a vital role in facilitating trade and taxation throughout the empire. This standardization allowed for fair and consistent trade practices, which in turn boosted economic activities and created a stable economic environment within the empire's borders. Arguably, one of Sargon's most significant innovations was the creation of a standing professional army. This military force reportedly numbered 400 men who ate bread daily before him, symbolizing their loyalty and service to the emperor rather than to local cities or leaders. The standing army was not only a tool of conquest, but also essential for maintaining order within the empire, ensuring that Sargon's authority was respected and upheld across the region. The implications of these strategies were profound. The establishment of a common language and standardized systems promoted trade and governance, while the professional army provided the coercive power necessary to maintain imperial control. These strategies set a precedent for future empires, influencing how they managed their vast territories and diverse populations. The economic foundations of Sargon's empire were built on the backbone of agricultural surplus, control of vital trade routes, and the wealth accumulated from conquered cities. Agriculture was central to the empire's prosperity, with surplus crops being extracted as taxes, which in turn supported the empire's infrastructure and military endeavors. Control over trade routes was another cornerstone of the empire's economic strength. With imperial security ensuring safe passage, trade expanded dramatically, with caravans and ships carrying goods across unprecedented distances. The empire's reach extended as far as the Indus Valley in modern Pakistan and into Central Asia, where merchants sought precious materials like lapis lazuli, carnelian, and tin. This extensive trade network not only enriched the empire, but also facilitated cultural exchanges that enriched the Mesopotamian civilization. The wealth derived from these economic activities allowed Sargon to finance ambitious building projects and maintain a strong military presence. However, the economic policies also had their drawbacks. Heavy taxation was a burden on the local populations, and the empire's reliance on agricultural surplus made it vulnerable to environmental changes and crop failures. Nevertheless, the economic strategies implemented by Sargon laid the groundwork for the empire's initial prosperity and expansion. For the common people, life under Sargon's empire was a complex mix of benefits and burdens. The imperial system brought about a period of relative peace and stability, allowing commerce and cultural exchange to flourish. Infrastructure projects, such as the construction of new irrigation works, increased agricultural productivity in certain regions, improving the quality of life for some inhabitants. However, this prosperity came at a cost. Taxation was heavy, and the empire often conscripted labor for massive building projects or military campaigns, placing a significant strain on the population. Rebellions were met with harsh punishments, including the demolition of city walls and the relocation of entire populations, underscoring the empire's authoritarian nature. Social hierarchies within the empire were rigid, with limited opportunities for mobility. The ruling class employed propaganda to maintain control, portraying the emperor as a divine figure to legitimize their authority. Comparisons with other empires of the era reveal similar patterns of governance, with the benefits of imperial rule often offset by the heavy burdens imposed on the populace. The death of Sargon around 279 BCE marked the end of an era and the beginning of a challenging period for his successors. His sons Rimush and Manishtusu faced the daunting task of maintaining control over a vast and diverse empire. Their reigns were marked by constant efforts to suppress revolts, a testament to the enduring challenge of ruling such a heterogeneous domain. Both rulers died violently, possibly assassinated, highlighting the precarious nature of power and succession in the Akkadian Empire. Naram-Sin, Sargon's grandson, ascended to the throne around 2054 BCE and proved to be a capable ruler. He further developed the imperial administration and embarked on ambitious military campaigns to expand and consolidate the empire. In response to a massive rebellion from several major cities, Naram-Sin demonstrated both military skill and ruthlessness, crushing the opposition and rebuilding the empire. However, his declaration of divinity was a controversial move that set him apart from his predecessors. Naram-Sin's declaration of himself as a god was a bold departure from Mesopotamian tradition. Previous rulers claimed to be divinely appointed or to rule on behalf of the gods. But Naram-Sin went a step further by having his name written with the divine determinative, a sign indicating deity status. Official art depicted him wearing the horned crown traditionally reserved for gods, symbolizing his elevated status. This elevation to divine status reflected the extraordinary power of the imperial office and was perhaps a strategy to strengthen loyalty in a multi-ethnic realm where local religious traditions varied. The artistic conventions established during this period, depicting the ruler as superhuman in scale and achievements, would influence royal iconography throughout the ancient Near East for centuries to come. Despite these impressive achievements, cracks were appearing in the imperial edifice. The decline and fall of Sargon's empire were the result of a combination of internal and external pressures. Maintaining control over such vast territories with ancient transportation and communication technology proved increasingly difficult. Provincial governors, often members of the royal family, developed their own power bases, challenging the central authority. The costs of constant military campaigns to suppress rebellions strained the economy, while external pressure from mountain peoples like the Guti and the power of Elam in Syria further threatened imperial control. Naram-Sin's death around 2018 BCE left his son Shah Kali-Shari to inherit these mounting problems. Despite his efforts to maintain imperial power, the centrifugal forces pulling at the empire proved too strong. Provincial areas broke away, external enemies pressed in, and economic troubles deepened. A later text dramatically describes these troubled times, asking who was king, who was not king, suggesting a period of disputed succession and fragmented authority. The empire ultimately fell around 2154 BCE, when the last nominal ruler of the dynasty was overthrown, bringing the Akkadian Empire to its end. The cultural impact of this first empire outlasted its political structures. The fusion of northern and southern traditions created a blended Mesopotamian culture that would influence the region for centuries. The imperial ideal, a unified state under a single ruler, became a recurring aspiration for ambitious leaders. The prestige of Sargon's dynasty remained so powerful that later rulers, including Assyrian kings nearly 2,000 years later, would claim connection to this first empire to legitimize their own rule. Even in decline, the accomplishments of this pioneering imperial state left an indelible mark on history. The organizational innovations, cultural exchanges, and political concepts developed during this period provided models for future empires, not only in Mesopotamia, but across the ancient world. Following the collapse of the Akkadian Empire, a period of fragmentation ensued across the lands between the rivers. The mountain-dwelling Guti seized control of northern territories, while southern city-states regained independence under local leaders. This interlude of disunity lasted for nearly a century. The Guti, described in contemporary texts as the dragon of the mountains, and a people who know no inhibitions, maintained loose control over the north, but never established sophisticated administrative structures. Their rule was characterized by raids and tribute collection, lacking the organizational complexity of the Akkadian Empire. However, this period of duty control set the stage for future developments in Mesopotamia, as local powers eventually reasserted themselves and laid the groundwork for the rise of new empires. As we conclude our exploration of Sargon's empire, we see how his innovations and strategies laid the foundations for future empires. The legacy of the Akkadian Empire continues to resonate through history, shaping the course of human civilization. In the next chapter, we will delve into the emergence of new powers in Mesopotamia and the enduring influence of ancient traditions on the ever-evolving tapestry of human history. In the aftermath of Northern Dominion, the southern cities of Mesopotamia experienced an extraordinary cultural renaissance that heralded the Neo-Sumerian period. This era, characterized by a revitalization of ancient cultural forms within new political structures, saw the city of Lagash rise to prominence under the leadership of Gudea. Gudea's reign was marked not by territorial expansion, but by a flourishing of arts, architecture, and religious expression. His devotion to the gods and his city was immortalized in the numerous statues crafted from hard diorite stone, a testament to the artistic sophistication and extensive trade connections of the time. These statues, depicting Gudea in poses of prayer, reflect both the artistic skill of the artisans and the spiritual aspirations of the era. The religious fervor of this period is further illustrated by inscriptions recounting Gudea's dreams and divine instructions, which guided the construction of elaborate temples. One significant text describes a dream in which the god Ningasu instructed Gudea to rebuild a temple with precise divine specifications, representing one of the most detailed religious texts from this time. While Lagash thrived culturally, the city of Ur emerged as the political center of a new dynasty, marking the beginning of a significant transition in Mesopotamian history. Namu, the founder of this new dynasty around 2112 BC, played a crucial role in reshaping the political landscape of southern Mesopotamia. He successfully expelled the Guti from the north and reunited much of the fragmented territory, albeit on a smaller scale than previous empires. Namu's legacy, however, was not built on military conquest but on governance and legal reform. He introduced the Code of Namu, the earliest known systematic legal collection, which established fixed monetary penalties for various offenses and aimed to protect the vulnerable from exploitation. This legal code, predating the more famous Code of Hammurabi by centuries, marked a significant shift towards standardized justice and away from physical retribution. Namu's contributions to Mesopotamian society extended beyond legal innovations. He embarked on an ambitious building program, constructing monumental ziggurats that rose majestically towards the heavens. These massive step temples, such as the well-preserved ziggurat at Ur, symbolized the renewed cultural confidence and religious devotion of the time. The architectural achievements of Namu set a precedent for his successors and underscore the importance of monumental architecture in asserting political and religious authority. Under the reign of Namu's son Shulgi, the Neo-Sumerian state reached its zenith. Shulgi ruled for an extraordinary 48 years, implementing a series of innovations that strengthened central governance while respecting local traditions. He standardized the calendar, reformed weights and measures, and reorganized the tax system, creating a more efficient and cohesive administrative apparatus. Shulgi's reign was marked by his symbolic actions to unify the state. He claimed to be a champion runner, personally carrying ritual offerings between major temple cities over vast distances, emphasizing his role in unifying distant centers through personal exertion. In the later years of his reign, Shulgi declared himself divine, establishing temples dedicated to his cult throughout the realm. This deification of the living king aimed to create a religious foundation for political unity across the traditionally independent city-states. The economic and social structures of the Neo-Sumerian era were equally sophisticated, combining centralized planning with emerging market elements. The state controlled vast agricultural estates and managed extensive redistribution networks. Textile workshops housed hundreds of female workers, producing goods for both domestic consumption and export, while private merchants conducted independent trade ventures under royal oversight. The economic vitality of this period was complemented by a revival of ancient languages and the flourishing of scribal schools. These institutions preserved and expanded traditional texts, leading to the standardization of literary works that would become classics in Mesopotamian literature. The Neo-Sumerian period witnessed a cultural renaissance that saw the revival of ancient languages for religious and literary purposes. Scribal schools played a crucial role in this revival, preserving traditional texts and fostering the development of new literary forms. Among these innovations was the emergence of the royal love song, a lyrical composition that depicted romantic relationships between kings and the goddess Inanna. These poems, blending politics with eroticism, served to reinforce the theological underpinnings of royal authority through divine marriage metaphors. A hymn about Shulgi describes him as the beloved husband of Inanna, symbolically linking political and cosmic order. The literary achievements of this period were not confined to the royal court. They extended to the broader cultural sphere, influencing future literary traditions and contributing to the rich tapestry of Mesopotamian culture. The theological implications of these innovations also played a significant role in shaping the religious landscape of the time, providing a divine justification for the political and social order. The Neo-Sumerian period was marked by a complex interplay of diplomatic and military strategies. Royal marriages were used to cement alliances with neighboring powers, while trade networks extended to distant lands, bringing luxury goods from as far as the Indus Valley and Afghanistan. Military campaigns were necessary to secure these trade routes and protect frontiers, particularly against nomadic peoples from the eastern highlands and deserts who periodically threatened settled areas. The geopolitical landscape of the era was shaped by these diplomatic and military efforts, reflecting the dynamic nature of international relations in the ancient world. The stability of the Neo-Sumerian period began to erode under the rule of Iberson, the last ruler of the dynasty. He faced mounting challenges from several directions, including the increasing independence of provincial governors who withheld tax revenues and eventually declared outright independence. The infiltration of Amorite nomadic groups from the west further destabilized the region as they established settlements in previously urban-dominated areas. Most critically, the ancient irrigation systems that sustained the agricultural heartland faced a combination of drought conditions and the cumulative effects of salinization. This process, where repeated irrigation in an arid climate leads to salt buildup in the soil, gradually reduced fertility, leading to severe agricultural difficulties. Grain prices recorded in texts from this period show dramatic inflation, suggesting a looming crisis that the Neo-Sumerian state struggled to manage. Environmental factors played a critical role in the decline of the Neo-Sumerian civilization. The salinization of soil due to irrigation practices in the arid climate of southern Mesopotamia had long-term implications for agricultural productivity and societal stability. As the land's fertility declined, the economic foundation of the Neo-Sumerian state weakened, exacerbating existing political and social tensions. These environmental challenges parallel those faced by other ancient civilizations, highlighting the delicate balance between human activity and natural resources. The Neo-Sumerian experience serves as a cautionary tale for modern societies, emphasizing the importance of sustainable environmental management to ensure long-term stability and prosperity. As we reflect on the Neo-Sumerian period, we see a complex tapestry of cultural, political, and environmental factors that shape the course of Mesopotamian history. The achievements and challenges of this era continue to resonate, offering valuable insights into the dynamics of ancient civilizations and their enduring legacy. In the next chapter, we will explore the emergence of new powers in Mesopotamia and the ongoing influence of these ancient traditions on the ever-evolving tapestry of human history. In the waning days of the Ur dynasty, the figure of Ishbara, a provincial governor, stood as a poignant symbol of the political fragmentation that plagued Mesopotamia. This era was marked by internal strife and external threats, which Ishbara experienced firsthand as he struggled to fulfill his duties. His inability to deliver vital grain shipments to the central authority was a direct result of these pressures, revealing the fragility of centralized power. Grain, a cornerstone of ancient economies, was not just a staple food, but also a symbol of prosperity and stability. The fertile lands of Mesopotamia, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, relied heavily on agriculture, with grain serving as a primary resource for both sustenance and trade. However, the stability of such a system was constantly under threat from nomadic groups, whose incursions disrupted the settled regions. These groups, driven by their own needs and ambitions, posed a continuous challenge to the established order. In addition to these external pressures, internal rebellions further destabilized the region as local leaders like Ishbara began to question the authority of the central government. Eventually, Ishbara declared his independence, establishing himself as the ruler of the city of Izine. This act of secession illustrated the process by which ancient states could disintegrate into smaller, autonomous entities, each vying for survival and power in an increasingly fragmented landscape. The final blow to the unity of Mesopotamia came from Elam, a neighboring state that had grown in strength. In 2004 BC, Elamite forces, allied with other adversaries, attacked and captured Ur, the heart of the once mighty empire. The city was sacked, its sacred ziggurat desecrated, and its king Ebi-Sin was taken captive to Elam, where he likely died in exile. The Lament for Ur, a contemporary literary work, captures the gravity of this event. It describes the city as defiled, its people as living ghosts, and its once life-giving Euphrates now filled with corpses. This poignant narrative blends historical report with theological interpretation, viewing the city's destruction as divine retribution for human failings. The fall of Ur was not just a political disaster, it was a cultural and spiritual crisis as well. For the people of Mesopotamia, the ziggurat stood as a symbol of their connection to the divine. These monumental structures, towering over the landscape, were seen as bridges between the earth and the heavens, places where the gods could be worshipped and petitioned. The desecration of Ur's ziggurat was not just an attack on a building, it was an assault on the very spiritual fabric of the society. The Euphrates River, once a source of life and prosperity, now flowed with the dead, symbolizing the complete reversal of fortune for the city. The lamentations composed by scribes and poets served as both a record of historical events and a theological meditation on the nature of divine justice. In these works, the fall of Ur was interpreted as punishment for the hubris and moral failures of its leaders and people. Yet, amidst the destruction, the cultural legacy of the Ur dynasty endured. Despite the political collapse, the Ur dynasty left an indelible mark on Mesopotamian civilization. Legal concepts developed during this period continued to shape the judicial systems of successor states. The Ur-Nammu Code, for example, is one of the earliest known legal codes, predating even Hammurabi's famous laws. This code laid the groundwork for a structured society, where laws governed the actions of individuals and communities. Literary works from this era, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, reflect the rich narrative traditions that would influence subsequent generations. These stories, filled with themes of heroism, mortality, and the search for meaning, resonated deeply with the human experience and continued to be retold and adapted over the centuries. Architectural innovations, particularly in the design of ziggurats and urban planning, also persisted. These structures not only served religious purposes, but also demonstrated advanced engineering and organizational skills. The concept of monumental architecture as a reflection of political and religious power became a defining feature of Mesopotamian and later civilizations. Following the fall of Mesopotamia entered a period of political fragmentation. The once unified region splintered into numerous city-states, each competing for dominance. This division was characterized by a lack of a central authority, leading to frequent conflicts over trade routes, water access, and fertile land. The trade routes that crisscrossed Mesopotamia were vital to its economy, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. Control over these routes meant economic power, and the competition to dominate them was fierce. The importance of water access cannot be overstated, as the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were the lifeblood of Mesopotamian agriculture. City-states like Ain, Larsa, Eshnona, and Mari emerged as regional powers, each with its own ambitions and rivalries. This era of division, lasting nearly a century, was marked by both conflict and cultural exchange, as these city-states interacted and competed with one another. Amidst this political chaos, a significant demographic shift was underway. The Amorites, a semi-nomadic people from the Syrian desert, had been gradually infiltrating the region. Speaking a Western Semitic language, the Amorites brought new cultural and linguistic influences to Mesopotamia. As they settled, they established dynasties in several cities, altering the political landscape. One such city was Babylon, a relatively minor settlement until the Amorites took control. In 1894 BC, an Amorite leader named Sumu-el established a dynasty in Babylon, setting the stage for its rise to prominence. Located on the Euphrates River, Babylon's strategic position made it an ideal center for trade and influence. For its first century under Amorite rule, Babylon remained one power among many, overshadowed by cities like Larsa and Eshnuna. Yet its leaders were patient, gradually expanding their territory and strengthening their city. This foundational work laid the groundwork for Babylon's eventual ascendance as a dominant power. The accession of Hammurabi, the sixth ruler of the Amorite dynasty, marked a turning point in Babylon's history. Hammurabi ascended to the throne around 1792 BC, and his reign would transform Babylon and the entire region. Early in his rule, Hammurabi focused on internal development, reinforcing the city's infrastructure and economic stability. He extended irrigation canals, renovated temples, and fortified city walls, ensuring that Babylon could withstand both natural and human threats. Hammurabi's diplomatic acumen was evident, as he cultivated relationships with neighboring powers, often acting as a mediator in their disputes. This careful diplomacy allowed him to consolidate his position without immediate confrontation. Once his power base was secure, Hammurabi embarked on a series of military campaigns to expand his kingdom. He systematically targeted rival cities, beginning with southern centers like Uruk and Eshnuna. Each conquest was followed by careful integration of the defeated territories into his growing empire. Hammurabi's military prowess was matched by his administrative genius. His government maintained detailed records of agricultural production, labor allocation, and resource distribution. Royal officials oversaw irrigation systems and regulated trade, ensuring the efficient functioning of the state. Hammurabi's personal involvement in governance is well documented, with surviving letters revealing his attention to detail in matters both great and small. Hammurabi's legacy is perhaps most famously embodied in the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest and most comprehensive legal codes in history. Inscribed on a stone stele, this code contained 282 laws covering a wide range of societal issues. The laws reflected a complex society with clearly defined social classes, where different penalties applied depending on the status of the parties involved. Despite its class-based approach, the code emphasized protection for the vulnerable, seeking to prevent the oppression of the weak by the strong. The Code of Hammurabi addressed everything from property disputes and inheritance to marriage, divorce, and professional standards. It laid the foundation for justice and social order, influencing legal systems for generations to come. Hammurabi's reign not only unified Mesopotamia politically, but also established a legacy of law and governance that would resonate throughout history. As Babylon rose to prominence, the stage was set for the next chapter in the ever-evolving tapestry of Mesopotamian civilization. In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, a pivotal transformation was unfolding as Babylon ascended to unprecedented heights of power and influence. Central to this transformation was the elevation of Marduk, a deity who would come to symbolize the very essence of Babylonian supremacy. As Babylon's political clout surged, so too did the prominence of Marduk within the pantheon of gods. This shift was not merely religious in nature, but also deeply intertwined with the political aspirations of Babylonian rulers. Marduk's rise was strategically propagated through royal decrees and religious festivals, designed to cement his status as the king of the gods. This elevation mirrored Babylon's own growing dominance, effectively serving as divine validation of its terrestrial ambitions. While Marduk's ascent was central, traditional deities like Enlil, Shamash, and Ishtar continued to be revered, reflecting a blend of innovation and tradition. This balance ensured that the old gods remained integral to Babylonian identity, even as Marduk's cult gained momentum. The kings of Babylon, notably Hammurabi, positioned themselves as divinely appointed leaders chosen by Marduk to uphold justice and prosperity. This notion of divine kingship, while stopping short of outright self-deification, was a powerful tool in legitimizing royal authority. The prologue to Hammurabi's famous law code, for instance, describes him as a shepherd named by Anu and Enlil to promote the welfare of the people. This dual emphasis on divine sanction and human responsibility became a hallmark of Babylonian royal ideology. Hammurabi's reign, commencing around 1792 BC, marked a golden era for Babylon. His military and diplomatic prowess enabled him to unify a vast portion of Mesopotamia, establishing a kingdom that spanned from the Persian Gulf to the northern borders. Yet it was his legal reforms that left an indelible mark on history. The Code of Hammurabi, a comprehensive set of laws inscribed on a stone stele, sought to bring order to a diverse and complex society. These laws, which covered everything from trade to family life, emphasized justice and fairness. With an iconic preamble that declared Hammurabi's commitment to cause justice to prevail in the land. While the code is often remembered for its principle of retributive justice, the famous eye for an eye, it also encompassed nuanced regulations that protected the vulnerable and promoted social welfare. Hammurabi's vision of a just society resonated far beyond his own time, influencing legal traditions across the ancient world. However, the apparent stability and unity achieved during his reign proved deceptive in the years that followed. Hammurabi's son, Samsu-Luna, inherited a kingdom that appeared robust, but was fraught with underlying tensions. Within a few years of his father's death, revolts erupted in the southern cities, driven by older cultural traditions resistant to Babylonian hegemony. These rebellions, though initially suppressed, continued to flare up, gradually eroding centralized control. The internal unrest was compounded by new external threats. From the marshlands of the extreme south emerged the Sealand dynasty, a group that carved out a domain along the coast, seizing key cities from Babylonian control. Simultaneously, mountain peoples from the Zagros range began making incursions along the eastern frontiers. These pressures forced Babylon to contract its territorial ambitions. By 1700 BC, A mere 50 years after Hammurabi's death, much of the southern territory had been lost. While subsequent rulers managed to retain control over central Mesopotamia, they could not reclaim the expansive empire of their predecessor. Despite this territorial reduction, Babylon itself thrived as a center of culture and commerce. The city expanded, housing tens of thousands of inhabitants within its vast walls. Its temples, palaces, and bustling markets made Babylon one of the ancient world's most impressive urban centers. During this period of political contraction, Babylon experienced a remarkable cultural and intellectual flourishing. Scholars compiled and preserved a wealth of ancient knowledge, from literary works to medical treatises. The Akkadian language of Babylon became the international diplomatic tongue of the Near East, facilitating communication between distant kingdoms. Astronomy, mathematics, and medicine reached new heights. Babylonian astronomers meticulously tracked celestial movements, pioneering predictive models of planetary behavior. Mathematicians developed an advanced numeral system that enabled complex calculations, including the solving of quadratic equations and early approximations of irrational numbers, like the square root of 2. This intellectual vibrancy continued for nearly 2 centuries after Hammurabi, with Babylonian culture exerting influence far beyond its political borders. The end of this era came abruptly around 1595 BC, with an unforeseen threat from the north. The Hittites, an Indo-European-speaking people from central Anatolia, mounted a raid of unprecedented scale under their ambitious king, Massili, marching over 500 miles. The Hittites caught Babylon unprepared, breaching its defenses and plundering its treasures. The ruling dynasty, which had governed for 3 centuries, was overthrown in the chaos. Satisfied with their spoils, the Hittites withdrew, leaving a power vacuum in their wake. This raid, while devastating, did not spell the end of Babylon's cultural legacy. Into the void left by the Hittite raids stepped the Kassets, a people from the Zagros Mountains, who had long been integrating into Mesopotamian society. Having served as mercenaries and settlers, the Kassites were well positioned to seize power. Under the leadership of Agum II, they established a new dynasty that would govern for nearly 400 years. The Kassites embraced Babylonian culture, adopting its gods, administrative practices, and language. Their rule, while politically transformative, preserved the cultural continuity of Babylon. This era saw the maintenance of stability and the flourishing of artistic and intellectual pursuits. The political landscape of the Near East during Kasset rule was characterized by a balance of power among several major kingdoms, known as the Club of Great Powers. Alongside Babylon, this group included Egypt, the Hittite Empire, the Mitanni Kingdom, and later the Middle Assyrian Kingdom. Diplomatic relations among these powers were sophisticated, involving elaborate protocols and alliances. Royal letters, inscribed on clay tablets in the Akkadian language, were exchanged between rulers who addressed each other as brothers, suggesting nominal equality. Royal marriages were a key diplomatic tool, with princesses sent to foreign courts to cement alliances. These marriages, accompanied by elaborate dowries, facilitated both political and economic ties. Merchants and ambassadors traveled established routes, ensuring a flow of goods and information that underpinned this international system. The Amarna letters, a diplomatic archive discovered in Egypt, provide a glimpse into these relations, revealing a world where diplomacy and trade were inextricably linked. Despite the upheavals that followed Hammurabi's reign, his legacy endured, casting a long shadow over Mesopotamian history. Later generations viewed his era as a golden age of justice and unity, a time when Babylon stood as a beacon of enlightened rule. The mythologization of Hammurabi as a just and wise ruler reinforced Babylon's cultural prestige, even as its political fortunes waxed and waned. This narrative of a golden age played a crucial role in shaping the identity of Mesopotamia, serving as a touchstone for future generations. In the centuries to come, Babylon would remain a cultural heart of the region, its influence felt in the realms of law, literature, and science. As the city adapted to changing circumstances, it continued to embody the resilience and creativity that had defined its history. In the annals of time, Babylon's story is a testament to the enduring power of culture and the complex interplay of politics and religion in shaping human civilization. The Kassite dynasty, ruling over Babylon, engaged in a complex web of international diplomacy that was as intricate as it was strategic. Their correspondence with the Egyptian pharaohs offers a fascinating glimpse into the delicate balance of cooperation and competition that characterized their foreign relations. One notable exchange involved a Kassite ruler expressing dissatisfaction with the diplomatic gifts received from Pharaoh Amenhotep III. In his letter, the king remarked, "Gold in your country is as common as dust," implying that the pharaoh could afford to be more generous. This correspondence underscores the importance of gold in diplomatic exchanges of the time, serving not only as a symbol of wealth, but also as a tool for building alliances and securing political favor. Diplomatic protocols in the ancient world were highly ritualized, with envoys and messengers playing crucial roles in maintaining communication between distant courts. These emissaries traveled great distances, often braving harsh terrains and political hazards, to deliver messages and gifts that were vital for sustaining alliances and managing conflicts. Political marriages were another key element of diplomacy, with royal families exchanging daughters as a means to solidify ties and ensure peace between kingdoms. The Kassites adeptly navigated this landscape, using marriage alliances to their advantage, while balancing their relationships with powerful neighbors like Egypt and Assyria. Within their realm, the Kassites demonstrated remarkable administrative acumen by adapting and enhancing existing governance models. A significant innovation was their introduction of Kudaru stones, which served as official land grants. These boundary markers were inscribed with detailed information about the land, including the identity of the grantee, the extent of the estate, and divine symbols meant to protect the grant from being violated. The use of Kudaru stones fostered a form of feudal relationship between the monarchy and a class of landed nobility, ensuring loyalty and support for the central authority. This system can be compared to feudal systems in other parts of the world, where land was granted in exchange for military service or other obligations. The economic impact of these land grants was profound, as they facilitated agricultural production and contributed to the wealth of the nobility, which in turn supported the kingdom's stability and prosperity. Divine symbols played a critical role in legal documents, invoking the gods' protection over agreements and deterring transgressions through the threat of divine retribution. The religious practices of the Kassite period reflected both continuity with the past and innovation. Traditional Mesopotamian deities remained central to state cults, but the Kassites also introduced some of their own gods into the pantheon, enriching the spiritual tapestry of the region. They placed particular emphasis on cosmic deities associated with celestial bodies, which contributed to the development of increasingly sophisticated astronomical observations. Religious festivals during this time were not only spiritual occasions, but also held significant socio-political implications, serving as opportunities for the monarchy to display power and reinforce social hierarchies. The priesthoods played a vital role in maintaining religious continuity, overseeing the rituals and ceremonies that were integral to both public and private life. Astrology became increasingly intertwined with religious practices, as priests and scholars sought to interpret celestial phenomena and integrate these interpretations into spiritual and political decision-making. The intellectual pursuits of the Kassite period were marked by dedication to preserving and expanding upon earlier literary traditions. Scribal schools flourished, serving as centers for education and knowledge dissemination. Scholars compiled comprehensive lists that organized knowledge across a wide array of subjects, from divine names and medical diagnoses to legal precedents and grammatical forms. These collections represent early attempts at encyclopedic knowledge organization and reflect a sophisticated understanding of the need to categorize and systematize information. Astronomical observations became increasingly precise during this period, as court astrologers meticulously tracked planetary movements to identify omens relevant to royal decisions. These observations, initially driven by divinatory purposes, eventually accumulated into data sets that enabled mathematical predictions of celestial events. The zodiacal system, dividing the ecliptic into 12 segments named for constellations, began to take recognizable form during this era. Medical texts from the period reveal a dual approach to healing, combining empirical treatments, such as herbal remedies and surgical procedures, with spiritual interventions addressing divine or demonic causes of illness. Diagnostic manuals linked observed symptoms to prognosis and appropriate treatments, demonstrating sophisticated clinical observation despite limited understanding of internal physiology. The artistic traditions of the Kassite period displayed remarkable technical mastery, with a distinctive style emerging in cylinder seals that featured precisely carved figures and elaborate detail. Monumental art continued earlier traditions while incorporating subtle new elements from various cultural influences, reflecting the dynamic nature of Kassite society. Glass production reached new levels of sophistication, with colorful vessels created for luxury markets, showcasing the technological advancements of the time. Despite its reduced size post-Hammurabi, Babylon remained a vibrant urban center, serving as both the administrative and cultural heart of the kingdom. The city boasted impressive temples, bustling markets, and diverse neighborhoods, maintaining its status as a preeminent religious center. The Kassites renovated the Great Temple of Marduk repeatedly, reinforcing Babylon's central role in the region's spiritual life. Throughout their long reign, the Kassite rulers maintained generally peaceful relations with neighboring powers, preferring diplomacy to military conquest. When conflicts did arise, they typically involved frontier regions or were responses to external aggression rather than expansionist ambitions. This relatively peaceful approach contributed to the dynasty's longevity, but eventually left them vulnerable to more militaristic neighbors. To the north, a resurgent Assyria gradually expanded its territory under ambitious rulers like Adad-nirari I. Once a commercial city-state focused on trade networks, Assyria evolved into an aggressive territorial state with a formidable military. By the 13th century BC, Assyrian forces began challenging Kassite control of northern Mesopotamia, signaling a shift in regional power dynamics. The balanced system of great powers began unraveling around 200 BC, when a series of dramatic upheavals transformed the Near Eastern landscape. The Hittite Empire collapsed suddenly, with its capital Hattusa destroyed and abandoned. Egyptian power contracted amid internal problems and the mysterious Sea People's raids. Trade networks disintegrated, and many urban centers declined or were abandoned entirely. The causes of this widespread disruption remain debated among historians. Climate change may have triggered crop failures and famine, while population movements brought new groups into conflict with established powers. Whatever the precise combination of factors, the result was a period of instability that historians call the Bronze Age collapse, a systemic failure of the political and economic structures that had maintained regional order. Amid this turbulence, the Kassite kingdom initially showed remarkable resilience, outlasting several of its great power contemporaries. However, mounting pressures eventually proved overwhelming. Elamite forces from southwestern Iran conducted increasingly destructive raids into Babylonian territory. The Elamite king Shutruk Nakant led a devastating campaign around 1160 BC, capturing important cities and carrying off cultural treasures, including the Victory Stele of Naram, Sin and the Law Code of Hammurabi. This Elamite invasion fatally weakened Kassite control, paving the way for a native Babylonian dynasty from the ancient southern city of Isin to seize power around 1155 BC, ending 4 centuries of Kassite rule. Despite the political transition, cultural continuity persisted. The Kassite period left an enduring legacy in Babylonian civilization. Their long, relatively stable rule had allowed for intellectual and cultural development, even without dramatic territorial expansion. The systematic organization of knowledge, astronomical observations, land management systems, and artistic traditions established during their reign would influence Mesopotamian civilization for centuries to come. As the Bronze Age gave way to the Iron Age, around 1000 BC, new powers and peoples would reshape the geopolitical landscape of Mesopotamia once again. Yet the cultural foundations, established during the Kassite period, building upon millennia of previous development, provided a resilient framework that would enable Babylonian civilization to survive dramatic political changes and eventually experience another renaissance under future dynasties. In the northern reaches of Mesopotamia, a formidable power was developing. In the land watered by the upper Tigris River, with its rolling hills and rain-fed agriculture, Assyria was rising. This chapter sets the stage for the next era of Mesopotamian history, where new powers will emerge and ancient legacies will continue to shape the region's cultural and political landscape. In the northern reaches of Mesopotamia, the Assyrians crafted a society defined by military prowess, administrative efficiency, and an unyielding determination to expand. Originally known for their trading capabilities, Assyria transitioned from a modest state centered around the ancient trading city of Ashur into a formidable empire. This transformation was not instantaneous, but rather a gradual evolution driven by strategic adaptations to the changing political and economic landscapes of the ancient Near East. The Assyrians' initial rise can be traced back to their role as intermediaries in international trade, establishing networks that connected Anatolia, the Mediterranean, and southern Mesopotamia. These trade routes allowed them access to a wealth of knowledge and resources, laying the groundwork for their imperial ambitions. As middlemen, they gained insights into the cultures and economies of their trading partners, which later proved invaluable as they ventured into territorial expansion. Key trade partners included powerful regions and city-states such as the Hittites in Anatolia, the maritime traders of the Levant, and the diverse cultures of southern Mesopotamia. This extensive interaction facilitated cultural exchanges that enriched Assyrian society, introducing new technologies, art forms, and ideas that would later be adapted to suit their imperial objectives. The transformation from a trading city-state to an expansionist power began to take shape under rulers like Ashur-uballit, who reigned from approximately 1363 to 1328 BC. Ashur-uballit asserted Assyrian independence from neighboring powers and began to engage in regional politics. His bold declaration to the Egyptian pharaoh, claiming equal status with other major powers, marked a significant shift in Assyria's self-perception and ambitions. Following in his footsteps, rulers such as Adad-nirari and Shianzar furthered Assyria's territorial ambitions. In the 13th century BC, they extended Assyrian control over new territories, establishing provinces governed directly by appointed officials rather than through vassal arrangements. This direct control allowed for more efficient administration and integration of conquered peoples, setting a precedent for future expansions. A pivotal moment in Assyrian history came with the reign of Tiglath-Pileser I, who ruled from approximately 1114 to 1076 BC. Known for his vigor and strategic acumen, Tiglath-Pileser I embarked on military campaigns in all directions, solidifying Assyria's presence in the region. His inscriptions boast of crossing the Euphrates River 28 times to confront Western adversaries and hunting lions as a royal sport, motifs that became central to Assyrian kingship. Tiglath-Pileser's reign marked the beginning of a new era of Assyrian power, characterized by aggressive expansion and the consolidation of territories. Despite his death signaling a period of contraction, the institutions and cultural elements established during his reign continued to develop, laying the foundation for future growth. Following Tiglath-Pileser's reign, Assyria faced nearly 2 centuries of contraction due to external pressures from Aramean tribal groups and internal succession challenges. However, this period was not merely one of decline. Key institutions and cultural elements continued to evolve, setting the stage for the resurgence of Assyria in the 9th century BC. During this time, the Assyrians refined their administrative systems, ensuring that their governance structures remained robust, even as territorial control waned. These administrative advancements would prove crucial as Assyria later embarked on expanding its empire once more. The resurgence of Assyria in the 9th century BC can be attributed to the leadership of rulers such as Ashurnal-Su, Shamanza-Thur, and Shamshi-Advi. These leaders played instrumental roles in refining the mechanisms of empire and laying the groundwork for future expansions. Under their rule, Assyria developed a more sophisticated approach to governance, integrating conquered peoples more effectively and maintaining stability across vast territories. Ashurnasirpal-Su, who reigned from 883 to 859 BC, exemplified this resurgence by establishing a new capital at Kalhu, modern-day Nimrud, and constructing a magnificent palace adorned with stone reliefs. These visual narratives served as powerful propaganda tools, depicting military conquests, royal hunts, and religious ceremonies, and reinforcing the image of Assyrian might. The Assyrian army underwent significant transformations during this period, becoming a well-organized and technologically advanced force. The adoption of iron weapons over bronze provided a technological edge, while the development of specialized military units, such as charioteers, cavalry archers, and siege engineers, ensured tactical superiority. The logistics behind military campaigns were meticulously planned, with supply chains supporting operations in distant regions. Administratively, Assyria implemented systems that matched its military sophistication. Conquered territories were organized into provinces, governed by officials directly answerable to the king. This centralized control allowed for efficient governance and the integration of local nobles into the imperial structure, fostering loyalty and stability. The Assyrian rulers were known for their strategic use of terror and psychological warfare to maintain control over their vast empire. Royal inscriptions and palace reliefs explicitly depicted extreme punishments inflicted on rebels, including flaying, impalement, and mass executions. These depictions served as both propaganda and a warning to potential rebels, illustrating the consequences of resistance. Such tactics, while brutal, were calculated strategies designed to instill fear and discourage dissent. The psychological impact of these measures was profound, ensuring that the Assyrian Empire remained intact and stable despite its vast and diverse territories. The relationship between Assyria and Babylon is a testament to the complexities of imperial strategy. Initially, Assyrian kings treated Babylon with respect, acknowledging its ancient cultural prestige. However, repeated rebellions and external influences, such as support from Elam, strained this relationship. Sennacherib's decision to destroy Babylon in 689 BC was a shocking departure from traditional respect, resulting in widespread religious horror. This act of sacrilege was seen as a divine offense, contributing to Sennacherib's assassination. His successor Esarhaddon recognized the need for a different approach. He ordered the reconstruction of Babylon, emphasizing ideology and religious respect over brute force as a means of maintaining control. Esarhaddon's pragmatic policies highlighted the importance of balancing power with diplomacy, setting a precedent for future rulers. By maintaining distinct cultural identities for Assyria and Babylonia, while keeping both under his control, he demonstrated a nuanced understanding of governance in a complex and diverse empire. In conclusion, the Assyrian Empire's rise from a trading city-state to a dominant regional power was marked by strategic adaptations and innovations. Through military might, administrative efficiency, and calculated use of terror, the Assyrians crafted an empire that left a lasting legacy on the ancient Near East. As the chapter closes, we look forward to exploring the continued evolution of this formidable power and its impact on the region's history. The conquest of Egypt by the Assyrian Empire marked a significant expansion of its power and influence. In 671 BC, Memphis, the ancient capital of Lower Egypt, fell to the Assyrian forces under the leadership of Esarhaddon. This victory extended Assyrian control over the fertile Nile Delta, reinforcing the empire's status as a multi-continental power. Memphis, with its rich history as a center of culture and governance, became a symbol of Assyrian dominance. The capture of this city was not merely a military achievement, but a strategic maneuver that demonstrated the might and reach of the Assyrian army. Assyrian military strategies were advanced for their time, relying on well-coordinated infantry, cavalry, and siege tactics. Their armies were known for their discipline and organization, capable of executing complex maneuvers that overwhelmed their adversaries. In Egypt, the Assyrians installed local governors who were loyal to the empire, thereby integrating the region into their administrative framework. While the Assyrians imposed their rule, they also absorbed aspects of Egyptian culture, which influenced the art and architecture of the empire. This period marked a high point for Assyria, as it controlled vast territories across the Near East, extending its influence over diverse cultures and peoples. Ashurbanipal, who reigned from 668 to 627 BC, is often celebrated as one of Assyria's most enlightened rulers. Unlike his predecessors, Ashurbanipal took pride in his literacy and scholarly pursuits. Alongside his military achievements, he is best known for establishing the Library of Nineveh, a repository of knowledge that collected texts from across Mesopotamia. This library housed over 30,000 clay tablets, preserving an array of literary, religious, scientific, and historical works. The preservation of these texts was crucial for the modern understanding of ancient Mesopotamian civilization. The library's extensive collection included the Epic of Gilgamesh, a seminal work of ancient literature that continues to captivate scholars today. Ashurbanipal's dedication to scholarship reflected a broader cultural zenith during his reign. As Assyria became a hub of intellectual activity, however, the library's survival into modern times was an ironic outcome of the violent destruction that later befell the Assyrian capitals. As invaders sacked Nineveh, many of the clay tablets were buried under rubble, protecting them from further damage. This unintended preservation allowed archaeologists to uncover these treasures centuries later, offering invaluable insights into the ancient world. Despite its outward appearance of strength, the Assyrian Empire faced significant structural challenges. Maintaining control over such a vast territory required immense military and administrative resources. The constant warfare that fueled the empire's expansion also strained its economic sustainability. While warfare generated plunder and tribute, it depleted manpower and placed a heavy burden on the empire's economy. The relocation and exploitation of subject populations fostered deep resentment towards Assyrian rule. This resentment simmered beneath the surface, threatening the stability of the empire. Under Ashurbanipal's leadership, the empire's momentum continued, but his death in 627 BC exposed its underlying fragility. Succession disputes weakened central authority at a critical moment when external threats were mounting. Without a strong leader to unify the empire, internal divisions and external pressures began to unravel Assyrian dominance. The fall of the Assyrian Empire was precipitated by a combination of internal strife and external aggression. One of the most significant threats came from Babylon, under the leadership of Nabopolassar, who declared independence in 626 BC. Initially, this revolt appeared to be yet another of the periodic rebellions that Assyria had previously quelled. However, Nabopolassar proved to be a formidable leader, determined to break free from Assyrian control. He forged a strategic alliance with the Medes, an Iranian people who had established a powerful kingdom in the Zagros Mountains. This Babylonian-Median alliance posed a direct threat to the Assyrian heartland, targeting its great cities. In 6014 BC, Ashur, one of Assyria's key cities, fell to the invaders, signaling the beginning of the end for the empire. 2 years later, in 612 BC, Nineveh was besieged and captured after a fierce 3-month struggle. The city's palaces and temples were destroyed, their treasures looted, and their walls toppled. A remnant Assyrian court attempted to hold out at Haran, but by 609 BC, Assyrian independence was completely extinguished. The fall of Assyria was as sudden as its rise had been monumental, leaving its once great cities abandoned and overgrown. The prophet Nahum's lamentation over Nineveh's destruction captured the deep-seated animosity that Assyrian rule had engendered. Despite its brutal methods, the Assyrian Empire left an enduring legacy that influenced subsequent civilizations. The imperial systems developed to manage vast territories provided models for future empires. Assyria's network of roads, administrative centers, and communication systems facilitated integration across fragmented regions. These innovations enabled military and economic coordination that transcended local boundaries. Moreover, the practice of gathering and preserving knowledge from across the empire safeguarded cultural and literary works for posterity. The Assyrian Empire represented an early attempt to create a multicultural political order encompassing diverse peoples and traditions. This complex achievement, though marred by violence, demonstrated the potential for unified governance over vast territories. From the ashes of Assyrian domination emerged a revitalized Babylonian state, poised to continue the legacy of Mesopotamian civilization. The foundation for Babylon's resurgence was laid by Nabopolassar, a leader from the Chaldean tribal groups. Taking advantage of Assyria's weakening grip, he declared independence and gradually consolidated control over southern Mesopotamia. His alliance with the Medes provided the military strength necessary to challenge Assyrian dominance directly. The dramatic fall of Nineveh in 6012 BC marked a turning point, signaling the end of Assyrian power and the rise of a new era. Nabopolassar faced the challenge of rebuilding a state that had long been subjected to foreign rule. He initiated reconstruction projects in major cities, reorganized administrative systems, and balanced competing interests among various factions. By the time of his death in 605 BC, Nabopolassar had established a stable foundation for his son to build upon. Nebuchadnezzar II, Nabopolassar's son, became the defining figure of the neo-Babylonian era. His 43-year reign transformed Babylon into the most magnificent city of the ancient world. Upon ascending the throne, Nebuchadnezzar demonstrated his military prowess by securing the western territories of the former Assyrian Empire. His campaigns extended Babylonian control through Syria and Palestine, reaching the Egyptian border. Nebuchadnezzar's siege of Jerusalem in 597 BC, followed by a more devastating conquest in 587 BC, had profound implications for Jewish history. The destruction of the Hebrew Temple and the exile of the Judean elite to Babylon were pivotal events, poignantly captured in biblical texts. These events left a lasting impact on Jewish cultural memory, as reflected in the famous lament, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion." With his borders secured, Nebuchadnezzar turned his attention to monumental construction projects within Babylon. The wealth flowing into the empire from tribute, trade, and agriculture funded an ambitious building program. This program transformed Babylon into a wonder of the ancient world, with its grandeur and architectural achievements becoming legendary. The city, already ancient with a history spanning nearly 2 millennia, was reimagined on an unprecedented scale. Massive new walls encircled an urban expanse of over 850 hectares, reportedly so thick that a 4-horse chariot could turn around on their top. A network of canals and quays managed the flow of the Euphrates River, which ran through the heart of the city. Wide processional ways, paved with limestone and adorned with glazed brick reliefs of lions, dragons and bulls, connected key religious and administrative centers. Most spectacular was the temple complex dedicated to Marduk, Babylon's patron deity, featuring the towering ziggurat Etemenanki. This ziggurat, rising in 7 colored tiers to a height of over 90 meters, likely inspired the biblical Tower of Babel. Beside it stood the Esagila, the main temple housing the golden statue of Marduk and treasures from conquered regions. The royal palace complex matched the city's grandeur, further establishing Babylon as a center of power and culture. In conclusion, the Assyrian Empire's rise and fall, and the subsequent emergence of the neo-Babylonian Empire, highlight the dynamic interplay of power, culture, and innovation in ancient Mesopotamia. These empires left indelible legacies that continue to shape our understanding of early civilization. As we move to the next chapter, we will explore the enduring influence of these ancient powers on the development of the classical world. Babylon, a city that stood as a beacon of civilization, was renowned for its architectural wonders. The city was a testament to human ingenuity, with its grandeur evident in the numerous temples, courtyards, audience halls, and administrative buildings. These structures formed a city within a city, capturing the essence of Babylon's complex urban planning. The influence of Greek traditions on Babylonian architecture is notable, as the Greeks themselves were later inspired by the splendor of Babylon. The role of architecture in Babylonian society was multifaceted, serving not only as places of worship, but also as centers of administration and culture. The temples were not merely religious sites, but also symbols of political power, showcasing the might and sophistication of the empire. In comparison with other ancient cities, Babylon's architectural achievements stood out, contributing to its reputation as one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. The significance of urban planning in Babylon cannot be overstated. The city's layout demonstrated a high level of organization and foresight, with its streets, buildings, and public spaces carefully designed to serve the needs of its inhabitants. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, often listed as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, have long captivated the imagination of historians and poets alike. These gardens, said to have been built by Nebuchadnezzar II for his Median wife, were described as a series of terraces filled with lush vegetation and flowing water. They were meant to remind her of the verdant hills of her homeland. However, despite their legendary status, no conclusive archaeological evidence has been found to confirm their existence. This lack of evidence has led some scholars to question whether the gardens were a myth or a reality. Nevertheless, the cultural impact of the Hanging Gardens is undeniable. They have become a symbol of Babylon's grandeur and the ingenuity of its people. The gardens have captured the imagination of later civilizations, inspiring countless works of art and literature. Historical accounts of the gardens vary, with some suggesting possible locations within the city, while others propose that they were a metaphorical representation of Babylon's prosperity. Regardless of their physical existence, the gardens hold a symbolic significance that transcends time, embodying the idea of a paradise on earth. One of the most important events in Babylonian society was the Akitu festival, an 11-day celebration that marked the beginning of the new year. This festival was not only a religious event, but also a form of political theater. During the Akitu festival, the creation epic Enuma Elish was recited, recounting the victory of the god Marduk over the forces of chaos. This narrative reinforced the cosmic order and the divine right of the king to rule. The king played a central role in the festival's rituals, symbolically subordinating his earthly authority to the divine power of Marduk. In a dramatic ceremony, the high priest would strike the king's face and force him to kneel before Marduk's statue, a ritual act of humiliation that demonstrated the king's service to the gods. The Akitu festival highlighted the close relationship between religion and politics in Babylonian society. It served as a reminder of the divine origins of the king's authority and the importance of maintaining cosmic order. The festival also provided an opportunity for the king to reaffirm his commitment to the gods and secure their favor for the coming year. In comparison with other ancient festivals, the Akitu stood out for its elaborate rituals and its integration of religious and political elements. Nebuchadnezzar II, one of Babylon's most famous rulers, was known for his ambitious infrastructure projects and economic reforms. His reign marked a period of revitalization for Mesopotamian society as he undertook extensive efforts to improve the empire's infrastructure. Irrigation systems were expanded and renovated, increasing agricultural productivity and supporting the growing population. Temples in ancient religious centers such as Uruk and Sippar were restored, reinforcing the cultural and religious heritage of the region. Trade routes were secured with military outposts and way stations, facilitating commerce and ensuring the flow of goods across the empire. These infrastructure projects had a profound impact on the economic structure of Babylon. The increased agricultural output and enhanced trade networks contributed to a thriving economy, with both state, managed and private enterprises playing significant roles. Nebuchadnezzar's reign also saw the emergence of powerful banking houses that financed commercial ventures and agricultural development through sophisticated credit arrangements. The legacy of Nebuchadnezzar's rule is evident in the long-term economic stability and prosperity that his reforms brought to Mesopotamia. The neo-Babylonian period was a time of remarkable intellectual achievement, particularly in the fields of astronomy and literature. Babylonian scholars refined observational techniques developed over previous centuries, creating increasingly accurate methods for predicting celestial events. These advancements were motivated by religious beliefs, as understanding divine intentions through celestial omens was a key aspect of Babylonian science. The mathematical sophistication involved in these studies laid the foundation for later scientific developments in astronomy. Literary culture also flourished during this period, with scribal schools preserving ancient texts and creating new compositions. The Babylonian creation epic reached its final form, synthesizing older traditions into a coherent theological statement about divine kingship and cosmic order. Historical texts documented royal achievements, while practical manuals transmitted specialized knowledge in fields such as medicine and engineering. The preservation and transmission of knowledge through scribal schools ensured that Babylonian scientific and literary achievements influenced later cultures. The death of Nebuchadnezzar II in 562 BC revealed underlying weaknesses in the Babylonian Empire's political stability. The absence of institutional structures capable of managing succession and maintaining stability beyond the life of a dominant ruler became apparent. Nebuchadnezzar's son, Amel-Marduk, ruled briefly before being overthrown by Neriglissar, a military officer who had married into the royal family. After Neriglissar's short reign, his young son was deposed in favor of Nabonidus, whose relationship to the royal family remains unclear. Nabonidus's reign was marked by controversy and increasing internal opposition. He showed particular devotion to the moon god Sin, elevating this deity's status in ways that disturbed the powerful priests of Marduk. Moreover, Nabonidus spent 10 years of his 17-year reign in the Arabian oasis of Tamar, leaving his son Belshazzar as regent in Babylon. This unprecedented absence from the capital weakened central authority and alienated key constituencies within Babylonian society. The priests of Marduk, aristocratic families, and urban elites grew increasingly dissatisfied, viewing Nabonidus's policies as religious deviation and neglect of traditional ceremonies. In 539 BC, the Persian forces led by Cyrus the Great approached Babylon after defeating outlying garrisons. The biblical account of the city's fall, featuring the famous writing on the wall, interpreted by the prophet Daniel, suggests a night of feasting interrupted by enemy intrusion. However, archaeological and contemporary Persian sources tell a different story. Babylon surrendered with minimal resistance, and Cyrus entered the city as a respectful liberator rather than a destructive conqueror. His famous cylinder inscription portrays him as chosen by Marduk to restore proper worship and just governance after Nabonidus's alleged neglect. The relatively peaceful transition preserved Babylon's physical splendor while ending its political independence. The neo-Babylonian Empire became a wealthy province within the larger Persian Empire, which established new paradigms for multicultural governance. The legacy of the neo-Babylonian period endures not only in archaeological remains, but also in cultural memory. From biblical narratives of exile and prophetic visions to Greek historical accounts, Babylon has left an indelible mark on human history. The wonders of the ancient world and the symbolic power of Babylon continue to inspire art and literature across millennia. The year 539 BC marked a pivotal transition in Mesopotamian history, as the region between the rivers became part of a vast multicultural empire centered outside its traditional boundaries. This transformation began with a remarkably peaceful transfer of power, preserving Babylon's physical grandeur while forever altering its political status. Cyrus II of Persia, a ruler whose origins seemed far from promising for world historical impact, played a key role in this historic change. The peaceful conquest and transition of Babylon under Persian rule exemplified the enduring influence of Babylonian civilization. As we conclude this chapter, we reflect on the rich cultural and historical legacy of Babylon, a city that continues to captivate and inspire generations. Cyrus the Great, one of history's most legendary figures, emerged from humble beginnings to forge an empire that would leave an indelible mark on the world. His ascent to power is a tale of prophecy, courage, and strategic genius. Born into the Achaemenid clan, a modest kingdom in southwestern Iran, Cyrus was destined for greatness. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, a prophecy warned King Astyages of Media that his grandson would one day overthrow him. In an attempt to avert this fate, Astyages ordered the infant's death. However, fate intervened, and Cyrus was raised in secret, ultimately fulfilling the prophecy by leading a revolt against his grandfather around 550 BC. The overthrow of the Median Empire marked the beginning of Cyrus's remarkable journey. With determination and strategic brilliance, he quickly expanded his domain. His early conquests included the wealthy kingdom of Lydia, known for its rich resources and strategic location. Cyrus employed innovative military tactics, combining speed and surprise to outmaneuver his adversaries. He also displayed a keen understanding of diplomacy, forging alliances and securing loyalty among conquered peoples. His approach was revolutionary, emphasizing cultural and religious tolerance instead of imposing foreign customs. This policy allowed local traditions to flourish, winning the allegiance of diverse populations and setting the stage for further expansion. Cyrus's policy of cultural and religious tolerance was groundbreaking for its time. While previous empires often sought to homogenize conquered territories, Cyrus allowed subject peoples to retain their own customs and administrative systems. This approach not only minimized resistance, but also fostered loyalty among diverse ethnic groups within his empire. Cyrus recognized the value of local traditions and integrated them into his administration, creating a sense of inclusivity and respect. This tolerance extended to religious practices as well. Cyrus refrained from imposing Zoroastrianism, the religion of the Persian elite on his subjects. Instead, he participated in local ceremonies and respected the deities of conquered lands. This policy of non-imposition of religion was not only pragmatic but also innovative, contributing to the stability and cohesion of his growing empire. The conquest of Babylon stands as one of Cyrus's most significant achievements. Under the leadership of his general Ugbaru, the Persian forces executed a brilliant strategy to capture the city without significant conflict. Babylon, a city of immense historical and cultural importance, was rife with internal divisions. King Nabonidus's unpopular policies and religious neglect had alienated influential groups, creating an environment ripe for conquest. As Persian forces approached in 539 BC, they encountered a society deeply divided. Some garrisons resisted, while others surrendered without a fight. Ugbaru's ingenious maneuver involved diverting the Euphrates River, allowing Persian troops to enter the city under its massive walls. The Nabonidus Chronicle, a contemporary account, describes the city's fall as surprisingly undramatic, emphasizing the lack of significant resistance. This peaceful conquest contrasted sharply with the violent upheavals that had characterized previous regime changes in Mesopotamia. Cyrus's policies extended beyond mere conquest. They transformed him into a liberator in the eyes of many, particularly the Jewish community. After capturing Babylon, Cyrus issued a decree allowing Jewish exiles to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This decision, recorded in biblical texts such as Ezra and Chronicles, positioned Cyrus as a divinely appointed figure, a messianic savior of sorts. The Cyrus cylinder, a clay artifact inscribed with the official Persian account of these events, is often regarded as one of the earliest declarations of human rights. It highlights Cyrus's commitment to restoring religious practices and returning displaced peoples to their homelands. This magnanimous approach not only cemented his legacy as a just ruler but also reinforced his reputation as a champion of religious freedom. Under Persian rule, Babylon underwent a transformation from an imperial capital to a vibrant provincial center. While it lost its status as the heart of an empire, the city retained its cultural and economic vitality. Babylonian administrative systems and scribal traditions continued to flourish, now serving Persian imperial needs. Many Babylonian elites found roles within the new administration, their expertise benefiting the expansive Persian Empire. The integration of Babylonian knowledge and practices into the Persian system enriched both cultures, fostering a dynamic exchange of ideas. Economically, Babylon thrived as a key hub of trade within the vast empire. Its strategic location facilitated commerce between East and West, contributing to the prosperity of the region. This period of stability and economic growth underscored the success of Cyrus's policies and the enduring legacy of Persian governance. Cyrus's empire, known as the Achaemenid Empire, was characterized by a sophisticated organizational model. It was divided into provinces known as satrapies, each governed by a satrap, typically drawn from Persian nobility. This system balanced centralized control with local autonomy, allowing diverse regions to maintain their unique identities while contributing to the empire's cohesion. A common administrative language, Aramaic, facilitated communication across vast distances. Standardized coinage and an impressive network of roads further enhanced governance and commerce. These innovations enabled the Persian Empire to manage its sprawling territories effectively, setting a precedent for future empires. The Achaemenid kings, including Cyrus, maintained a policy of religious tolerance that was ahead of its time. While they practiced Zoroastrianism, they did not impose it on their subjects. Instead, they participated in local religious ceremonies and respected the deities of conquered peoples. This approach not only ensured stability, but also fostered goodwill among diverse populations. The principles of Zoroastrianism, with its emphasis on the cosmic struggle between truth and falsehood, influenced Persian governance and ethics. However, the freedom afforded to local religious practices allowed for a rich tapestry of beliefs to coexist within the empire. This inclusivity contributed to the empire's longevity and resilience, as it embraced diversity rather than suppressing it. The Persian Empire's impact on Mesopotamia and beyond was profound and enduring. Under Persian rule, the region experienced a period of relative stability and economic prosperity. The integration of Babylonian knowledge and administrative expertise enriched Persian practices, creating a dynamic exchange of ideas. The empire's vast network facilitated trade and cultural exchange, connecting distant regions and fostering a sense of interconnectedness. While occasional rebellions and succession disputes posed challenges, the empire's organizational structure and policies ensured its resilience. The legacy of the Persian Empire, with its emphasis on tolerance, inclusivity, and administrative innovation, continues to influence modern governance and international relations. As we conclude this chapter on Cyrus the Great, we reflect on his remarkable achievements and the lasting impact of his visionary policies. His legacy as a conqueror, liberator, and statesman endures, shaping the course of history and inspiring future generations. The conquests of Alexander the Great marked a profound turning point in the history of Mesopotamia, ushering in an era of Hellenistic influence that reshaped the cultural and political landscape of the region. When Alexander defeated the last Persian king, Darius II, in 331 BC, he not only claimed the vast Persian Empire, but also introduced Hellenistic culture to the ancient land between the rivers. This transition was not merely a change of rulers, but a transformation in governance and cultural outlook. The Achaemenid dynasty, which had ruled Mesopotamia since the conquest of Cyrus the Great, was known for its policy of respecting and incorporating local traditions. This approach preserved Mesopotamian cultural achievements even as political autonomy was lost. Under Persian rule, the ancient cities, especially Babylon, continued to thrive, with their traditions and knowledge contributing to the broader empire. Alexander's entry into Babylon was marked by a vision to make it the capital of his new Eastern Empire. He recognized the city's historical significance and embarked on ambitious restoration projects for its temples and palaces. However, his untimely death in 323 BC in Babylon itself set off a succession crisis among his generals. This struggle ultimately led to the establishment of the Seleucid Empire by Seleucus, one of Alexander's generals. Seleucus founded a new capital, Seleucia on the Tigris, which symbolized the blending of Greek and Mesopotamian cultures. The city was designed with Greek-style architecture, featuring grid, planned streets, theaters, and gymnasiums, representing a deliberate effort to implant Hellenistic culture in the heart of Mesopotamia. The Seleucid Empire was characterized by a complex cultural synthesis, where Greek and Mesopotamian traditions coexisted and influenced each other. This period saw the introduction of Greek as the administrative language, yet Mesopotamian temples continued their operations, and cuneiform writing persisted for religious and astronomical texts. The intellectual developments of the era were marked by the fusion of Babylonian astronomical knowledge with Greek theoretical models. Babylonian traditions, with their emphasis on mathematical prediction of celestial movements, significantly influenced Greek cosmological theories. Greek philosophical approaches, in turn, affected how Babylonian scholars interpreted their ancient traditions. A notable example of this cultural synthesis is the work of Berosus, a Babylonian priest who composed a Greek language history of Mesopotamia for the Seleucid ruler Antiochus I. This work translated Mesopotamian traditions into forms that were comprehensible to a Hellenistic audience, preserving ancient knowledge in a new cultural context. The Hellenistic period in Mesopotamia witnessed significant religious transformations, characterized by syncretism between Greek and Mesopotamian deities. Traditional temple cults continued, but with decreasing state support compared to earlier periods. Greek gods were often identified with their Mesopotamian counterparts, such as Zeus with Marduk and Apollo with Nabu, leading to new worship patterns. Simultaneously, new religious movements, including Eastern mystery cults and philosophical schools, gained adherents in the cosmopolitan cities of the region. These movements offered alternative spiritual paths and contributed to the rich tapestry of religious life in Hellenistic Mesopotamia. The decline of the Seleucid Empire, due to internal conflicts and external pressures, paved the way for the rise of the Parthian Empire. The Parthians, an Iranian people from Central Asia, gradually expanded westward, eventually taking control of Mesopotamia around 141 BC. Their arrival marked a new stage in the region's transformation, characterized by a partial return to Eastern cultural patterns. While Greek remained an important cultural language, Aramaic gained prominence, and Iranian cultural elements became more visible in art and ideology. The Parthians adopted a decentralized governing approach, allowing considerable autonomy to local authorities, including Greek-style city councils and traditional temple administrations. During this era, Babylon's decline continued, although it still maintained some religious significance. Newer urban centers like Seleucia on the Tigris flourished, and Ctesiphon emerged as the Parthian administrative center. Uruk, one of the oldest Mesopotamian cities, retained surprising vitality, with its main temple complex dedicated to Ishtar remaining active well into the Parthian period. As newer cities rose, Babylon's once great stature faded, although it remained inhabited and maintained religious significance. The rise of Seleucia and Ctesiphon as major urban centers reflected a shift in economic and strategic priorities. Seleucia, with its Greek-style urban planning, became a hub of commerce and culture, attracting people from across the region. Ctesiphon, located across the river from Seleucia, served as the Parthian administrative capital, symbolizing the blending of Greek and Eastern influences. The Parthian period also witnessed the gradual abandonment of cuneiform writing, which had been the primary script of Mesopotamia for over 3,000 years. The latest known cuneiform astronomical text dates to AD 75, while the latest precisely dated literary text comes from 35 BC. This shift marked a decisive break in cultural continuity, as cuneiform was replaced by other writing systems, including Greek and Aramaic. Despite this transition, many Mesopotamian traditions continued in translated forms or through oral transmission, preserving the cultural legacy of the region. The spread of Judaism during the Hellenistic and Parthian periods further enriched the religious landscape of Mesopotamia. Jewish communities developed in major cities, interacting with local cultures and contributing to the region's diversity. The Babylonian Jewish community, descended from the exiles of the Babylonian captivity, became an influential center of Jewish learning and tradition. These communities maintained their cultural identity through religious texts and practices, influencing and being influenced by the surrounding cultures. In conclusion, the Hellenistic and Parthian periods in Mesopotamia were times of profound cultural and political transformation. The introduction of Hellenistic culture brought new ideas and practices, while the rise of the Parthian Empire represented a return to Eastern traditions. Through these changes, the enduring legacy of Mesopotamia continued to shape the region and beyond, ensuring that the land between the rivers remained a vital part of world history. In the centuries following the Persian authorization for Jews to return to Jerusalem, a significant transformation was taking place within the Jewish communities that remained in Mesopotamia. These communities were at the forefront of an intellectual and spiritual renaissance, culminating in the creation of the Babylonian Talmud. This monumental collection of rabbinic discussions on Jewish law and ethics became a cornerstone of Jewish scholarship. The process of compiling the Talmud was a collective effort involving generations of Jewish scholars. They debated and documented diverse interpretations of religious texts, discussing topics ranging from ritual practice to ethical behavior. The Talmud's intricate debates and legal reasoning provided a framework for Jewish life that adapted to the complexities of diaspora existence. Its teachings helped preserve Jewish identity and continuity during times of dispersion and cultural change. The Babylonian Talmud's influence stretched far beyond its time, shaping Jewish communities worldwide and becoming an enduring symbol of Jewish resilience and intellectual vitality. The overthrow of the Parthian rule by the Sasanian Persians in AD 224 marked a new era in Mesopotamia. The Sasanian Empire, with its centralized governance, established a more assertive Iranian state. Under Sasanian rule, Zoroastrianism flourished with strong state support, creating both opportunities and challenges for religious minorities in the region. The empire's administrative systems became more hierarchical, with increased tax demands and labor obligations impacting the population's daily life. During this period, Ctesiphon reached its zenith as a magnificent city, serving as the winter capital of the Sasanian Empire. Its architectural marvels, particularly the legendary palace with its enormous vaulted hall, stood as testaments to the empire's grandeur and would later influence Islamic architectural traditions. While Ctesiphon thrived, other Mesopotamian cities continued to exist, albeit often on a smaller scale than in previous eras. The diverse cultural landscape of pre-Islamic Mesopotamia was characterized by a rich tapestry of religious practices and beliefs. The religious landscape of Mesopotamia before the Arab-Islamic conquests was extraordinarily diverse. In the southern marshlands, the Mandaeans practiced their distinctive baptismal religion, maintaining ancient traditions. Meanwhile, Manichaean missionaries spread their dualistic faith from Mesopotamian bases, seeking converts far and wide. Eastern Christianity also took root, with the Church of the East developing unique theological traditions and establishing missionary networks that reached as far as China. Amidst this diversity, Jewish scholarly communities in Mesopotamia continued to flourish, producing the Babylonian Talmud around AD 500. This work became the most authoritative legal and ethical compilation in Rabbinic Judaism. Simultaneously, the last priests of ancient Mesopotamian religious traditions maintained their increasingly isolated practices in dwindling temples, their numbers diminishing with each generation. The Arab-Islamic conquests of the 630s and 6040s brought profound change to Mesopotamia. The decisive Battle of Kadisa in 6036 marked the turning point, leading to Arab control over the region. This conquest laid the foundation for the Abbasid Caliphate, with Baghdad established as its new imperial center in 762. Built near the ruins of ancient Sisyphon, Baghdad emerged as a hub of cultural revitalization within an Islamic tradition. Under Islamic rule, Mesopotamia, now increasingly referred to as Iraq, experienced a cultural renaissance. While ancient gods and ununiform writing faded into obscurity, the legacy of Mesopotamian knowledge persisted. Astronomical and mathematical advancements developed over millennia influenced early Islamic science. Irrigation techniques, refined since Sumerian times, continued to sustain agriculture, while administrative practices informed Islamic governance. Countless folk beliefs, literary motifs, and cultural practices survived in adapted forms, their ancient origins largely forgotten, but their influence enduring. The legacy of Mesopotamian civilization is a testament to its enduring influence on successor cultures. Mesopotamian innovations in astronomy, mathematics, and irrigation techniques left an indelible mark on subsequent civilizations. The preservation and adaptation of these practices contributed to the flourishing of Islamic scholarship and scientific advancement. Modern archaeological discoveries have gradually unveiled the forgotten splendor of ancient Mesopotamia. The deciphering of ununiform writing, the excavation of ziggurats, and the unearthing of royal palaces have transformed our understanding of humanity's origins. These discoveries highlight Mesopotamia's role in producing the world's first cities, earliest writing systems, and pioneering legal codes. Today, the physical legacy of ancient Mesopotamia is embedded in the landscapes of modern Iraq and Syria. Archaeological sites, museum collections, and the cultural heritage of contemporary inhabitants bear witness to this rich history. Yet, perhaps the most profound legacy lies in the foundational concepts that shaped subsequent civilizations. The organization of urban communities, the development of writing for record, keeping and literature, the codification of laws, and the creation of complex religious systems all find their roots in ancient Mesopotamia. The evolution of writing in Mesopotamia stands as one of humanity's most revolutionary achievements. What began with simple clay tokens and pictographs in Uruk around 3400 BC gradually evolved into a sophisticated system capable of expressing abstract thoughts, preserving literary works, and transmitting knowledge across generations. The ununiform writing developed in Mesopotamia influenced many subsequent scripts and transformed human societies worldwide. The organization of urban communities in Mesopotamia also laid the groundwork for future civilizations. Early cities grappled with challenges familiar even today, from governance and resource management to economic regulation and social order. Solutions developed in these pioneering urban centers, such as municipal councils, written laws, tax systems, and religious institutions, established patterns that would be adapted by countless societies. The gradual dissipation of distinct Mesopotamian cultural traditions is akin to a river flowing into marshlands. The civilization that began at Eridu and Uruk in the 4th millennium BC slowly merged with other cultural streams, nourishing newer growth. Elements of Mesopotamian heritage persisted in Jewish communities, astronomical knowledge and irrigation practices, influencing successor civilizations in ways both recognized and unrecognized. Modern archaeological excavations have played a crucial role in rediscovering Mesopotamian culture. Key discoveries, such as the deciphering of ununiform writing and the excavation of ancient sites, have transformed our understanding of early human civilization. These findings reveal the profound impact of Mesopotamian achievements on contemporary thought and practice. As our journey through the history of Mesopotamia draws to a close, we can reflect on the extraordinary legacy this civilization bestowed upon human development. The achievements that emerged from the land between the rivers continue to influence our world today in ways both obvious and subtle, recognized and forgotten. The story of ancient Mesopotamia is one of transformation and diffusion, a testament to the enduring power of human creativity and adaptation. In the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates, the peoples of ancient Mesopotamia laid the groundwork for many aspects of modern civilization. Among their most significant contributions was the development of sophisticated mathematical systems. Driven by practical needs such as land measurement, architectural planning, and calendar development, Mesopotamian scholars reached incredible levels of mathematical understanding. The most enduring of these innovations is the sexagesimal system, a base 60 numeral system that continues to influence us today. Every time we speak of 60 seconds in a minute or 3v 60 degrees in a circle, we echo the calculations made by the scribes and priests of ancient Mesopotamia. These early mathematicians observed the stars from temple platforms, using their findings to create tools that helped organize society. Their work in geometry and time measurement provided a framework that has endured for millennia. The Mesopotamians' mathematical prowess extended into architecture and land measurement, allowing them to construct impressive cities and manage vast agricultural lands. Their influence is evident when we consider other ancient numeral systems, such as the Egyptian base 10 or the Mayan base 20 systems. Yet, the Mesopotamian system's lasting impact is undeniable, particularly in its application to timekeeping and geometry. Even today, our division of time and angles reflects the ingenuity of those early scholars. In addition to their mathematical contributions, The Mesopotamians were pioneers in the development of legal systems. The law codes of Mesopotamia, from the Code of Namu to the famous Code of Hammurabi, laid the groundwork for modern legal systems. These ancient codes established principles of justice, procedures for dispute resolution, standards for commercial transactions, and protections for various social classes. Though often harsh by modern standards, these codes were revolutionary. They introduced the concept that laws should be publicly known, consistently applied, and derived from principles beyond the whims of rulers. This idea of an established legal framework underpins all modern legal systems. The role of scribes in these early societies cannot be understated. As the bearers of law and knowledge, scribes were responsible for promulgating these codes and ensuring their adherence. They were the custodians of justice, and their work in recording and interpreting laws was as crucial then as it is now. The comparison with modern legal systems reveals the profound influence of Mesopotamian law codes. From the concept of presumption of innocence to the notion of proportional justice, many legal principles we take for granted have their roots in these ancient texts. The religious and mythological frameworks developed in Mesopotamia also left a lasting impact on later cultures and religions. The Epic of Gilgamesh, with its flood narrative, bears striking parallels to biblical accounts, suggesting a shared cultural memory that transcended time and geography. Mesopotamian religious texts explored concepts of divine justice, cosmic order versus chaos, and humanity's relationship with supernatural forces. These themes would echo through later faith traditions, influencing theological thinking throughout the Middle East and beyond. The pantheon of Mesopotamian deities, each with distinct roles and attributes, laid the foundation for later mythologies. Their religious practices, from priestly hierarchies to ritual purification, found echoes in subsequent religious traditions. Sacred architecture and theological speculation from this era also influenced later religious structures and doctrines. Even today, we can trace elements of modern religious practices back to Mesopotamian origins. The technological innovations of Mesopotamia were transformative, revolutionizing daily life and economic possibilities. Irrigation systems developed by Sumerian farmers allowed agriculture to thrive in semi-arid environments, dramatically increasing food production. The potter's wheel revolutionized ceramic manufacturing, enabling the mass production of pottery. Advances in metallurgy saw the progression from simple copper tools to sophisticated bronze alloys, marking the dawn of the Bronze Age. Wheeled vehicles changed transportation possibilities, facilitating trade and interaction among distant regions. Glass production, textile manufacturing, and countless other crafts reached levels of refinement that would influence civilizations across multiple continents. These innovations laid the groundwork for economic systems that would sustain large populations and complex societies. Trade flourished, with Mesopotamian goods reaching as far as the Indus Valley and the Mediterranean. The exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies helped create a vibrant, interconnected world that would endure for centuries. Mesopotamia was also a cradle of political innovation. From the self-governing city-states of early Sumer to the vast empires of Assyria and Babylon, Mesopotamian rulers confronted fundamental political challenges. They navigated tensions between local autonomy and central authority, balancing traditional practices with administrative efficiency. Figures like Sargon of Akkad and Nebuchadnezzar II played pivotal roles in shaping the political landscape. Their experiments in statecraft, both successful and failed, provided models and cautionary tales for subsequent political systems. The shift from city-states to empires required new forms of governance and administration. Mesopotamian rulers developed bureaucracies to manage resources and people, laying the groundwork for modern statecraft. These early political experiments highlight the complexities of governance, offering lessons that resonate even today. In the realm of literature and intellectual pursuits, Mesopotamia was unparalleled among ancient civilizations. The Epic of Gilgamesh remains one of the earliest and most profound explorations of human experiences, confronting themes of mortality, friendship, and the search for meaning. Wisdom literature offered reflections on justice and suffering, drawing parallels to later works like the biblical Book of Job. Creation myths explored humanity's place in the cosmic order, while love poetry, royal hymns, proverb collections, and humorous tales found expression in cuneiform texts. These literary works established narrative and poetic traditions that would influence subsequent literatures across the ancient world. The intellectual achievements of Mesopotamia extended beyond literature. Their advancements in astronomy, mathematics, and medicine laid the foundation for scientific inquiry. They catalogued celestial bodies, developed early forms of algebra, and practiced complex forms of medical diagnosis and treatment. This intellectual legacy continues to inform modern scientific and literary traditions. Perhaps the most profound lesson from Mesopotamia is the concept of cumulative cultural achievement. This civilization demonstrated humanity's capacity to build upon previous generations' discoveries, preserve and transmit knowledge, and adapt traditional practices to new circumstances. The continuity of Mesopotamian culture, spanning thousands of years, exemplifies this cumulative process. The preservation of knowledge through written records and oral traditions allowed Mesopotamians to build on the past and innovate for the future. This ability to stand on the shoulders of those who came before us is a hallmark of human civilization. Through trade and conquest, Mesopotamian innovations spread, influencing societies far beyond the borders of the ancient Near East. The complex nature of cultural transmission and parallel development means that some Mesopotamian innovations directly influence subsequent societies through documented contact and deliberate adoption. Others represent independent solutions to universal human challenges, with similarities reflecting common problems rather than direct influence. As we reflect on the enduring legacy of Mesopotamia, we recognize its profound influence on modern civilization. From legal systems to scientific inquiry, from architectural innovations to literary traditions, Mesopotamian achievements continue to shape our world. The metaphor of cultural transmission as a river is apt, with Mesopotamian contributions flowing through countless tributaries and distributaries, mingling with other cultural streams. These ancient achievements remind us that civilization is not a static possession, but a dynamic process. It began long before any of us were born and will continue long after we have returned to dust. We are the inheritors of traditions, innovations, and wisdom accumulated over thousands of years. As modern inhabitants of a world shaped by electricity, digital communication, and space exploration, we may be tempted to dismiss these ancient achievements as primitive or irrelevant. Yet, the fundamental challenges of human existence remain as pressing today as they were for the inhabitants of Uruk or Babylon. The story of Mesopotamia reminds us that though the specific forms of civilization change, the fundamental human experiences of love and fear, wonder and uncertainty, creation and destruction remain remarkably constant. The legacy of Mesopotamia lives on in our minutes and hours, in our written words, in our cities and laws, in our religious concepts and scientific inquiry, and in our continuing effort to find meaning and create beauty in a world that, like the unpredictable floods of the ancient rivers, remains perpetually changing and eternally challenging.